So August 1st, you were diagnosed with breast cancer 2 days after your birthday. How did you feel when the doctor called you and gave you that news?
Well, as you can imagine, it definitely wasn't news that I was expecting to hear. But just to give you a little backstory, just go back a couple of days to my birthday. I actually had a biopsy on my right breast and the lymph nodes under my right armpit on my birthday, my 56th birthday. And there was, based on how the doctor was reacting and just based on the things that I saw on the screen, I was a little concerned. So when I got the diagnosis 2 days later, I actually got a text message from my doctor. He's a breast surgeon. The text message came very early in the morning, and he said, "Please call me regarding your biopsy results." And so I knew then in my spirit that probably wasn't going to be good news for the doctor to be texting me that early in the morning, and we already had a follow-up visit scheduled for him to give me the results. So when I got the results, it was shocking, but at the same time it wasn't, because I had a cluster of cysts in my right breast that we had been monitoring for about a year, and up until that point they had been benign. And so with the last mammogram prior to the biopsy, there were some concerns because there had been some changes. And so, of course, it took me a while to process it. I got the news when I was at work, and so the way it was delivered was a little difficult. But, it took me some time to process it and to really face the reality of the diagnosis. So I will never forget my 56th birthday.
In 2012, your sister Sharon Blakemore passed away from breast cancer. How did that make you feel? Because I know you guys were really close.
I took my sister's death very hard. I had not experienced the death of a close relative since my grandmother, and that had been several years prior. As you said, my sister and I were very close. We were my mother's two daughters, and there was a 12-year age difference between us. And my sister was 12 years my senior. She was like a second mother to me. I was born in 1968. She was born in 1956. She changed my cloth diapers, so we had a strong bond. She was a great big sister. She did a lot of, she took me along with her on some of her dates when she was a teenager. So that lets you know how much she loved me. And so it was very difficult to hear about her death. But I think what was most painful for me was it was the circumstances that were surrounding her death. My sister, she isolated a lot. She did not allow people to really come in and help the way they wanted to. She was a fiercely independent woman, very obstinate, very strong-willed, and she had a very strong faith in God like I do. However, she felt like, she could handle her illness on her own for the most part, just me and God. But God works through people. And there was a lot more that I would have liked to have done for her. One of the most difficult things was I was in Atlanta and she was in St. Louis, back in our hometown. So, the distance made it difficult as well. We were expecting my sister to get better based on the things that she was telling us. And so we weren't prepared for her to die. It wasn't like she told us, well, the doctor says I'm terminal, I've got X amount of months to live. She kept telling us that she was going to get better. She would not accept the diagnosis of terminal illness. She didn't even want to talk about death. So death was not an option for her. And so therefore, we were not prepared as a family to face in such a short period of time that she was dying. And so it was very difficult for me. It was very painful. And then to top it off, the person who was supposed to love and care for her in her weakest moments was abusing her. But this was the person that she chose to have near her and close to her, and the person she wanted to take care of her. But that person was abusing her. So that was hurtful as well. They neglected and abandoned her in her darkest hour. But I take peace in knowing that I did all that I could for her. I spent quality time with her before she passed. I had some time with her the week prior to she passed to just kind of talk to her and let her know how much I loved her and how proud I was of her as a sister. She was my role model. And I also had written her a letter about 5 months prior to her death, just really letting her know my thoughts about her. I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave anything unsaid.
In 2018, your nephew Jabari Blakemore came to visit you from college, and he had chest pains. You took him to the doctor and you found out he had a heart defect. What was going through your mind when the doctors told you that?
Well, everything was happening so fast. He had asked me if he could come and visit me on his college break from Mississippi. So the fact that he even made it to Atlanta, that he made that drive, was a miracle in itself. I knew that heart disease ran in the family, and his grandfather, because my sister and I had different fathers, his grandfather actually passed away from the same genetic heart defect, which is called cardiomyopathy. So again, everything was happening so quickly. I was not expecting when I took him I started off with a clinic, and then they told me to take him to the emergency room. And from there, he was admitted, and he ended up being in the hospital for almost 4 months. And so I had to make some quick decisions. I immediately became his caregiver. I became his power of attorney. I had to make medical decisions on his behalf. And so it was very surreal in the beginning. I was told that if he did not get a heart within 3 months, he was going to die. So this was a very dire situation. There was no question that he could stay here with me, that he could recover with me. And so I saw God perform several miracles in his life during that time, in a short period of time.
What made you decide to step up in the auntie role, even though you're his aunt, as you stepped up as a mother and allowed him to move in, and you watched over him through the whole process while he was healing?
Well, I could sum that up in one word, and that's love. I loved my sister, who was his mother, and I loved Jabari. And he was like another son to me. He was his mother's only child. You're my only child. And so there was no question that I was going to let him be here with me. And I really believe, had he made the decision to drive to St. Louis for his break, his college, his Christmas break, that he would not have lived. First of all, he would have had to survive the drive from Mississippi to St. Louis, which was a further drive. But God brought him to me. And my sister made him my godson when he was baptized. So I took that responsibility seriously. And so I loved Jabari. I wanted the best for him. I had a home for him here. Didn't have a lot of room in my home, but I made room. And I tried to make reasonable accommodations for him. And he received quality care through the medical team that God assembled for him. And so it was just second nature, for me to take him in, to step up and to do what I did for him. And if I had the choice to do it all over again, I would. And I felt like I was also honoring my sister's memory. I think about what all she did for me. Like I said, she changed my cloth diapers. And so, I wanted to do more for her, and I felt like I was getting more of a chance to do that by helping her son.
How did you feel when you got the call that he passed away?
Well, again, my initial reaction was shock. I was at church and I got a text message that he had passed away. I wasn't surprised about him being hospitalized because I knew he was having some health challenges. And but once I dealt with the reality that he had passed away, the next emotion that settled in was anger, because I felt like Jabari died before his time. He died exactly 1 week prior to the 5-year anniversary of his heart transplant surgery. So I was looking forward to calling him and congratulating him, and letting him know that how thankful that I was that God, through God's grace, that he got more time here on this earth, and I knew God was going to use him in a mighty way. And he also was just a couple of weeks shy of his 24th birthday, so he was so young. But Jabari had made a lot of poor life choices. He was young, and he lacked wisdom. And he wanted to live life on his own terms. He wanted to live his life on the edge. And I feel like in his heart, he didn't think he was going to live long. So he just kind of wanted to live kind of wild and free. But the series of choices that he made, including going back to St. Louis, I feel contributed to a premature death. Now, only God knows that for sure. But I was angry. And it was only through going through some grief classes that I was able to kind of process those feelings. And I had to just get to a point where I understood that it was Jabari's life and he lived it the way he wanted to live it. I did my part. I went above and beyond to help him to the best of my ability. And so, but I was angry. But now I'm at peace.
So last Monday, you rang the bell for your last chemotherapy session. How did they make you feel?
relieved, because when I first got diagnosed and I was told what my treatment plan would be, I was told that I would have 16 rounds of chemo. And that seemed like that would last forever, but it actually went by pretty quickly. And what made it so special is that I had the people that I care about, people who care about me, came to support me. And a lot of people wanted to be there. And so it just, it just signified God's faithfulness in my life and him seeing me through this whole journey. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't easy, but it was a celebratory occasion, and it was another accomplishment in my life that I was able to achieve with the Lord's help. I couldn't have done it without my faith in God and the support and prayers of my family and friends.
So you decided to cut your hair on your own. What made you want to do that?
Well, I knew I was going to lose my hair. I knew that was inevitable. So I kind of wanted to get ahead of things. I didn't want it to, I wanted to be in control of something. I wasn't in control of having the cancer cells in my body. So this was something that I felt like I could control. I could lose my hair on my own terms. And then too, just like I've evolved, my hairstyles have evolved. Anybody who knows me knows that I always change my looks. And that I've always, had fun with wigs and head wraps and hats and, just different types of accessories. So I try to embrace wherever I am in every stage of my life. So when I turned 55, I told my husband that I wasn't going to color my hair anymore. I was going to go gray. So I had just embraced and had gotten comfortable and settled into having gray hair, and then finding out that I was going to lose my hair. So I've cut my hair short before. I've just chopped it off and let it start all over again. So this was nothing different. Of course, this was, for a different reason. And but anyway, I was prepared to lose my hair. I had already started cutting it lower and lower. And so I went to a barber and just had them go ahead and shave it off. And I've actually been getting a lot of compliments with having it this way. I've had people tell me, you got the right shaped head, you got the right face, you should just keep it that way. I do plan on keeping it low, but when it grows back, I'm kind of excited to see what it's going to look like. It might look even better than it did before I lost it. It's another journey, another part of my journey, and I'm embracing it. So I would say to any woman, embrace who you are, where you are in your life. If you are gray, if you're bald, embrace it, make it uniquely you, rock what you got. That's what I'm doing.
Over the last couple of years, me and you kind of clash a bit because I'm silly and you're a little bit more serious. And I can't even remember the last time you saw a comedy movie. What has kind of made you a lot more serious, even before the cancer circumstance? What has caused you to be a lot more serious?
Mm-hmm. Well, as we discussed earlier on in this interview, we have different personalities. So I think it's a combination of things. One of them is, I think my temperament is to be a little bit more on the serious side. I'm more reserved. You're more animated and silly. So there's, we have different temperaments. And then life circumstances. As you know, we've had a lot of traumatic situations in our family. More than our fair share to be such a small family. And in a lot of those situations, I was at the forefront. I was the first responder, so to speak. Especially after my sister passed. She was the oldest, I'm the youngest. And so after she passed, a lot of her responsibilities in the family kind of got passed along to me. And so just being in situations where there's been a lot of adversity, a lot of trial, a lot of struggle, a lot of challenges, having to overcome a lot of things over time, even though I survived each one of those situations, I think that a part of me kind of got lost in those situations. And, and I feel like my life has been kind of a series of interruptions that, each time I move forward with some things that I want to do, it gets interrupted by some type of traumatic situation. And so the latest one has been cancer. But what I try to do is use each one of those situations to inspire others because of the way I go through it. And so I'm not a real animated type person. I'm serious, but at the same time, I'm positive. And anybody who knows me personally knows that I'm very positive, I'm very encouraging, and I'm a person that people come to get wise counsel. So those are, those things kind of supersede the fact that I'm serious. So I'm definitely serious, mainly because of life circumstances, but a part of that is just my natural temperament. I've always been kind of serious, but I've become more serious because of what I've been through in my life.
You were a good student in school, and you have a child that's completely the opposite of you. You know, you never been in any type of trouble. You never been arrested. You didn't drink or smoke. How did you feel constantly going up to the school for your child having behavior problems, always in trouble? How did you deal with that? Did you feel like you failed as a parent?
Any parent at some point when they have a child that's strong-willed and going in the opposite direction of what they want would question themselves, question their own parenting. Especially with me being such a young parent, I was 17 when I got pregnant with you, and I was 18 when you were born. And so I didn't know anything about raising children. I was the baby in my family, so I had to literally learn from scratch. And so a lot of what I did as a parent was through trial and error. So it was very challenging, very difficult. I was stretched in ways that I never could have imagined. One of the good things that came out of it is that it helped me to lean and depend more on God, and to just really seek Him through prayer. And so, you were always a playful child. You were very imaginative. You had good qualities, but you just weren't channeling it, channeling your energy in the right direction. You were very disruptive in class. And so there was a lot of embarrassment associated with that, a lot of frustration. And, it was very difficult for me. And that period lasted for a long time. So I always say that you kind of had an extended time of puberty. There were times when you were rebellious. So as a parent, yes, I did question my own parenting skills. I did wonder, what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? But one of the things that I know I did right is that I persevered through prayer. I was persistent and consistent with prayer. And so there's a scripture that anchored me during those years, and I still appreciate this scripture, and it's Galatians 6:9, which says, "Let us not become weary in well-doing, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you don't give up." So all those years of prayer, I can see the harvest now. Things did turn around for you. This was something that, God used to strengthen our relationship with each other. There were times when you didn't listen. There were times when you had to learn the hard way. Most of the time you had to learn things the hard way. But it was all part of God's plan. It was a rocky road. It was bumpy. It was hard. It was difficult. But those times are what should draw you closer to God. And I'm glad in my case, that's what happened. It drew me closer to God and not further away. And so I would say to any parent who has a strong-willed child, or a child that's not doing what you think they should do, don't give up. Regardless of what you see today, things can always turn around. And get together with other parents and pray for your children. And don't compare your child to anyone else's child, because your child is on their own unique journey. And that's one of the mistakes that I did make, was I looked at other people's children and wondered, why can't my child be more like that? But when I look at you now, I see a man who has evolved, a man who has grown and matured, a man who has learned a lot about life, and now you are inspiring others through the work that you're doing. And I'm proud of you.
During the pandemic, you met the love of your life, Milton Griffin. You had a pandemic love. You also got married. How did you feel about that? Did you ever think you would get married? I mean, you were single for a while. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it definitely was a God thing. I had been praying for many years to get married. I had a very strong desire to be married. I always felt like I was supposed to be married, but I didn't have any signs that it was ever going to happen. Just a desire. And I had tried dating in the past, wasn't really successful at that, didn't really enjoy the world's way of dating. And so I just removed myself from that scene. And I just made up in my mind I wanted to do it God's way. I actually wanted a courtship. I didn't want to date. I wanted a man to pursue me with the purpose of marriage. And so I just kind of removed myself from all of that and just focused in on the things of God and developing myself. When I look back on it, I'm really glad that I didn't get married sooner. I got married at 53. So I'd like for, people to know there is hope no matter how old you are. If God wants it to happen, it will happen. But I just kept focusing on the things of God and just serving God, serving Him at my church and developing myself in different areas of my life. But that desire was always very strong. And God brought my husband to me in such a way where nobody could get the glory or the credit for it but him. He literally brought him to my front yard. Because my husband and I both said we didn't want to do things the way the world is doing it. We didn't want to go on, these dating sites and things like that. We wanted to meet in person. And so the way that it was done, it was miraculous, and maybe I can share that in another video. But yes, I did know I was going to get married, just didn't know when. There were times when I got frustrated. There were times when I would see other people getting married before me that I had prayed for to get married, and I felt sometimes like God had forgotten me. But God can keep you hidden. He can hide you until you're ready for that person. And so I'm thankful that I waited on God's timing. I'm so thankful. And I would tell anybody, don't give up on God and don't get ahead of God.
With this interview, what do you plan to accomplish?
What I want to accomplish is to inspire others and to give people hope and inspiration. As you know, I'm not a person who really likes to be in the limelight. I don't like a lot of attention. But if I'm going to be in the limelight, I want it to be for a purpose. I want it to be for the purpose of blessing others, inspiring others, being a source of encouragement to others. So, no matter what you might be going through right now, for anyone who might be watching or who will watch this video, I want you to know that there's always hope. That there is a scripture that says that hope doesn't disappoint. And so I want my circumstance to inspire others, to know that regardless of how things look today, that there's always a better tomorrow.
You recently opened up a fortune teller cookie. Can you tell us what it says?
You will be unusually successful in an entertainment career. So, I read fortune cookies for entertainment purposes. I don't really put a lot of stock in them. I base everything that happens in my life on the Word of God and prayer. But should that happen, should the Lord allow that to happen, to God be the glory. He knows that, God knows that I am a vessel, I'm a willing vessel for Him to use however He sees fit. And if He wants to further inspire others through placing me in the entertainment arena, then I'm open to that. It would definitely take me out of my comfort zone, but I'm not one who shies away from a challenge. And so we'll see what God has in store. If that's what the avenue He wants to take me, I'm ready to go.
What would you say to people that's going through a hard time right now? They feel like they want to give up. They feel like their circumstance is overwhelming. What advice would you give other people?
Well, as someone who's had a lot of adversity in my life, I would say that you have to have faith in something greater than yourself. And for me, that's the Lord Jesus Christ. I don't know how I would get through any of the things that I've dealt with in my life without His help. So that's first and foremost for me. But I would also say, don't isolate yourself. Don't try to handle things on your own. We all need someone. There comes a time in everyone's life where you're going to need someone to lean on, someone you can depend on, someone you can trust, someone who can encourage you. And so I would say, if you don't have that, seek that out. Try to find some positive people that can surround you and rally around you during your time of adversity. And also realize that you're not the only one going through adversity. We tend to feel like when we're going through a hard time that we're the only one going through this, or that our situation is so much bigger than anyone else's. And so to that point, I would say, as difficult as this might sound, try to find someone else that you can help. One of the things that when I got diagnosed with cancer, I asked God, what do you want me to be doing during this process? I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm also a servant. And God told me, never feel sorry for yourself and continue to help others. So I would say, find a way to help others, even in the midst of your adversity, because it'll help to take the focus off of you. We tend to become self-absorbed when we're going through something. And so I would say, reach out to somebody else, and you'll realize that your problem is not as bad as you think it is. Another thing I would say is, try to count your blessings more than you count your problems. That's something else that, we don't really think about doing, but we have a lot more blessings than we do problems. If we'll just take the time to be intentional about listing them out, maybe get a pen and paper and just write down your blessings. And your problems don't last for long. We tend to take a lot of things for granted. Just waking up every morning with breath in your lungs, that's a blessing. And that's not something that we should take for granted. You might not feel like it's a blessing on certain days, but it is. Life is a gift, life is a blessing. So that's the main thing that I would say is, just really try to reach out and help others.
How do you feel about this generation of people dating and how things are? Women want to be cash apped, they want their hair and nails done, they feel they are the table. It's even some guys that want to be taken care of by people now. So how do you feel about dating in this generation?
To be honest with you, I find it disturbing because I feel that it has become exploitation. The purpose of dating is to gather data, to find out about this person that you're spending time with, find out what their likes are, their dislikes, what are their values, what are their hopes and dreams for the future. Do they want to be married? Are they God-fearing? That's the purpose of dating. But unfortunately, because of the culture that we live in now, and a lot of that is influenced by music and entertainment, people have the wrong idea about dating. And also, people have unrealistic expectations of what they want in a mate. Sometimes unreasonable expectations. I like to say that a lot of times women have been deceived into thinking if they can get a man who's 6'6", if he has 6 figures, 6 feet tall, and has a six-pack, that's the ideal man. Well, we also know that 666 is the mark of the beast. That's the sign of the devil. So you might be dating the devil and you don't know it. So I would say, in this modern day dating culture, I am a person who never really has liked dating because there's so much deception and it's, that is involved with it in this dating arena. And there is a lot of superficiality associated with it. And I'm a person who's very down to earth, very transparent. So I never was really successful at dating. And I just can't imagine with modern day dating, it's challenging. So I would tell people, make sure you're dating with a purpose. Make sure that that your values align with the person that you're dating. What is your reason for dating? And if your purpose and your goal is to get married, then you need to surround yourself with like-minded people who will hold you accountable. People who are also marriage-minded. If you meet someone and you want to get married and they don't, and don't try to change their mind, you have to respect what another person wants. It's not your job to convince them otherwise. I would say be very discerning, be very wise. There's so much going on in the world now. There's just a lot of, like I said, deception. And so, and another thing is, anytime someone's asking you to pay for their companionship, that's basically an escort service. And so people can call it what they want, but that's basically what it is. It's an escort service. And so, dating has evolved and it has turned into something that I feel is very self-centered. It's very self-focused. And so I find it disturbing. So for anyone that wants to get married, I would say please be very careful, be very discerning. Surround yourself with people who are marriage-minded, like-minded, positive, and encouraging, who will hold you accountable.
So I'm gonna address this. As you know, in 2009, I battled alcoholism. I quit drinking alcohol. And last summer, as you know, I quit smoking cigarettes after 14 years. I went through withdrawals. It was tough, withdrawals for 3 weeks. And after that, for months, I battled depression because now all the things that I was trying to avoid, I had to deal with. And it did put a strain on our relationship because there were times where all I wanted to do was smoke. I didn't want anybody around me, and I was just depressed. And I'm sure it was tough, probably as a mother, you watching that, and I'm sure you probably didn't want me to do that. And I want to say sorry for me doing that to myself. And I'm learning now how to live life without a crutch, and it's very difficult. I'm taking it day to day. And I want to know, how do you feel about that? Like, what was going through your mind when I finally quit smoking cigarettes after 14 years? It's been a long battle. It's still hard day to day when I get stressed out, because cigarettes was like my best friend. When I got stressed, when I got bored, that's how I dealt with my problems. And a lot of times when we would have family events, I would be trying to end it early so I can go smoke. Same at work, I would miss out on a lot of activities because that's all I cared about. And so I just want to say sorry, and that you're a strong woman. Watching you go through this process, definitely been inspiring. And I figure if you can overcome your battle, then I can overcome mine. And I want to say sorry for a lot of the things I did as a kid, acting a fool and everything, and also my battle with addiction. And I want to know from your point of view of, how did you feel when I finally quit? So after hearing my response on my past alcoholism and my addiction for 14 years to nicotine, and recently now dealing with depression, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, as you know, as your mother, I witnessed these things going on as they occurred. And it was very difficult to watch because, any loving parent doesn't want their child, they don't want to watch their child suffer and struggle. And, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for being so honest and transparent about your journey, about your struggle. It's going to help others. And it's not easy. It takes courage to reveal things about yourself that are not pleasant. But the Bible tells us that when we confess our sins to one another, that's one way that we can be healed. And so I feel like, this is going to be part of your process for healing and becoming whole. And, you're on your way to being free. But, as your mother, it was very difficult to watch. With the alcoholism, I didn't realize how bad that was until you got sick. I remember you coming home from work one day and you said you had gotten sick from eating some pizza. But in reality, you were hungover. You were sick from just drinking too much. And I know that in our family, addiction runs in our family. And depression runs in our family. And so because I know these things, it allows me to pray more specifically against these things, that, so that someone in our family, in our bloodline can break that cycle. And I believe that, you're going to be that person. But it was very difficult for me to watch you going through that. And I prayed and prayed and prayed for God to take, thankfully the alcoholism was broken first. Because we had, I was determined. I said, God, I do not want my son to be an alcoholic. I just wouldn't accept that. So God broke that, and unfortunately it took some serious illness for that to happen. And so now you don't even touch alcohol at all. But with the cigarettes, you kind of transfer that addiction from the alcohol to cigarettes. And that one lasted the longest. And it just would really bother me when you would come in, and I would smell the cigarette smoke on you. It was just like repulsive to me. It was, it was a very offensive smell. And then when I think about the day you were born, you went into fetal distress and you struggled to breathe. And so knowing that about you and then watching you destroy your lung cells smoking, it just was very disturbing, But when you have an addiction, addiction is not rational. When you have an addiction, your focus is feeding that addiction. So I'm just very thankful that you have reached this point in your life where you have, you basically are overcoming it, and that you are willing to share it with other people, and so that they can, overcome it as well. And I'm thankful God answered that prayer, and I'm proud of you. So I want you to stay on this path, Stay on this path of healing and wholeness. And as far as depression is concerned, there's always help available. Of course, God can deliver you, and then you can also get professional help through counseling, which is something that I have done off and on through the years. And it's one of the biggest investments and the best investments you could ever make in yourself is to get professional counseling, provided that you find the right one. So kudos to you for being so open, honest, transparent, and for being resilient. I'm proud of you.
Hi, I'm Emmanuel Hodge, comedian, impressionist, I do it all. If you like today's content, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for more interviews in the future.